Imagine digging through, a forgotten corner of tech history and finding something that just shouldn't exist.
Right.
A device that came out at the peak of the Game Boy Advance era, but it looked like something from the mid-90s. And it was built by a company famous for, of all things, romance and drama, not circuit boards.
It's one of my favorite stories.
We're talking about a super rare, almost mythical artifact from early 2000s Japan. So today, our job is to cut through all that obscurity and figure out the real story behind this incredible piece of tech, the Aquaplus P.
The PC, yeah, pronounced piece.
And more importantly, how its philosophy let it basically defy the grave for 20 years.
It really is one of gaming history's greatest paradoxes. This was a portable platform launched in November 2001, and right away, the first thing you have to look at is who made it. Aquaplus and its subdivision, Leaf.
And Aquaplus and Leaf were known for what, exactly? Not hardware titans, that's for sure.
Oh, far from it. They were, and they still are, legendary creators of Japanese visual novels.
Yeah.
We're talking massive hits like Two Heart and Yudo Uramono. So this little handheld was their one sole and completely unexpected dive into building physical gaming hardware.
A visual novel studio building a console that feels less like a strategic expansion and more like a passion project that somehow just accidentally made it to market.
Well, the sources suggest it was a calculated attempt to get their content deeper into their fans' lives. But to understand its mission, you have to look beyond gaming. Aquaplus immediately positioned it as multifunctional mobile equipment.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Mobile equipment. They weren't just thinking about cartridges and high scores. What kind of functions did they try to cram into this thing?
They were aiming squarely at the PDA market, the personal digital assistant, which was, booming at the time.
Of course.
Its whole design history really links to serving as an organizer first and then maybe a game device second.
And it had that clever dual purpose when you connected it to a PC, right? Which was kind of its home turf, given their focus on Windows games.
Yes, exactly. You'd plug it into a computer via USB, and it would instantly become a dedicated USB gamepad.
That's a neat trick.
It was a great twist, offering immediate utility to their core audience who were already playing their PC titles.
But for mobile use, what did it ship with? Was there any software on it out of the box?
There was. To fulfill that PDA role, it came pre-installed with software called Picket.
Picket.
And Picket handled all the essentials: a calendar, an address book, a task planner. This whole blend of low-tech productivity and entertainment was really central to its mission.
And looking at the physical device itself, the interface was so minimalist. You have a D-pad, the familiar A, B, start, select buttons. But how did you even get games onto it? This is 2001. Downloads were slow.
They covered their bases surprisingly well, actually. You could load content with the USB port, and you got a CD with all the drivers and software to transfer from your PC.
Okay.
But the truly forward-thinking feature was the integrated infrared port, the IR port.
The IR port. That's a dedicated nod to connectivity.
Exactly. It allowed for data exchange directly between two consoles. And this wasn't just for, basic multiplayer. It suggested sharing game data, high scores, maybe even contacts. It was this grassroots, community-focused idea baked right into the hardware.
All of that points to some real ambition, some clever design. But here's where it gets really interesting, because the specs are, to be honest, shocking for 2001.
Oh, yeah?
They were pushing this multifunctionality with hardware that seemed to completely reject the 21st century.
The specs are why the PC is basically an instant relic. You're running on a 32-bit RSC Epson CPU, clocking in at a mere 24 megahertz.
24 megahertz. Just to put that in perspective for you, the Neo Geo Pocket Color was running at over 6 megahertz 3 years earlier.
Right, and the Game Boy Advance, which launched the same year, was over 6 times faster.
So was this just extreme cost-cutting, or did they genuinely think this was enough power?
It was definitely cost-conscious, but also strategically minimalist. I mean, they weren't trying to run 3D games. The memory was similarly tiny. 256 kilobytes of RAM and 512 kilobytes of flash memory, with only about 348K you could actually use.
That's less storage than an old floppy disk.
It forces a developer to be incredibly efficient. But the most iconic, unforgettable constraint had to be the display.
The display is what immediately sets it apart. We're talking about a monochromatic FSTN LCD. The resolution was tiny 128 by 88 pixels.
And that FSTN part is important. Film, super twisted pneumatic. It's a type of screen known for fantastic contrast, deep blacks, and great power efficiency.
Fun.
But its refresh rate was notably slow, so fluid animation or smooth scrolling was incredibly difficult, which again pushed games toward static visual novel scenes or simple tile-based stuff.
And it only displayed 4 shades of gray. 4, that's a 2-bit color depth. This severe restraint is a huge creative limitation. So what did all this austerity mean for the user's main concern?
This is where the hardware constraints became a bit of an advantage, especially for its PDA role. The entire device operated on a single AA battery.
Just one.
One AA battery. A massive win for portability, but it demanded a huge trade-off in gaming performance.
How bad was that trade-off?
For active game time, you were looking at about 2 hours. But here's the clever part. In standby mode, that one battery could last up to a full week.
Whoa.
Which confirms its dual identity, right? It was designed to be carried as a planer that occasionally played simple mini-games, not a dedicated gaming workhorse.
And the sound experience?
It was functional. Mono sound output from the device itself. But if you plugged in headphones, it would kick into stereo. A small detail, but it shows they were thinking about it. You could manage all that volume. Screen contrast in the BIOS.
So the technical specs alone would suggest a very short, forgettable life. I mean, a low-powered monochrome device entering a world of color and 3D. But what truly saved this device, and why we're even talking about it today, is the revolutionary philosophy Aquaplus applied to developers.
This is the absolute core of the PC's legacy. Unlike every major hardware manufacturer, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, Aquaplus adopted this aggressively open platform strategy. They wanted to be maximally accessible for programming from day one.
How revolutionary was that in 2001? Because console makers were obsessively trying to lock their systems down.
It was almost unheard of for a commercial platform. Aquaplus actively encouraged homebrew development. And they didn't charge developers a dime. They just supplied free development tools based on the C language.
Free tools.
Which immediately lowered the barrier to entry for anyone with even basic programming skills.
So if they lowered the barrier for creation, how did they handle distribution and security? Surely they had some complicated DRM system.
Quite the opposite. And what's fascinating here is the device had no copy protection at all. Zero. Games were simply downloaded from the internet, sometimes for free from the official website, sometimes purchased as commercial projects, and then you just loaded them onto the device via USB. They relied on community trust, not tech.
That decision. No copy protection, free tools. It just created an immediate culture built on sharing and creation, not just consumption. It treated the users like partners.
And that trust led to some wonderfully specific and unusual content. Given who made it, the device became this portable hub for characters from their biggest hits.
So we're talking portable versions of characters from their visual novels. The sources mentioned the niche content route.
Yes, specifically the content often drew on characters from Livres Eroge, which, for those who don't know, is a type of Japanese visual novel, often with adult themes. The most popular game was Multi's Going Out, with the robot Multi from To Heart. It was a way for fans to carry a piece of their favorite PC worlds with them.
That is a powerful way to get dedicated fans engaged. And they really doubled down on the PC integration, didn't they?
Precisely. Select Aquaplus Windows games actually supported the PC directly. This let you transfer saved data between the huge PC title and this tiny portable device, or even more cleverly, unlock special mini-games that were only accessible when you transferred them to the PC.
That's a brilliant strategy. It's basically the same idea as the VMU for the Dreamcast or the Pocket Station for the PlayStation.
Yeah, exactly.
But Aquaplus was applying that concept specifically to the niche, high-engagement world of PC visual novels.
It created a mandatory piece of fan merchandise. If you were a deeply invested fan, the PC wasn't just another handheld. It was the essential key to unlocking the full experience of games you already owned.
So the device launches in 2001, builds this small but passionate community, but eventually the manufacturer moves on. What was the official timeline for support?
It was brief. Aquaplus officially ceased support on August 20, 2004. They just moved the PC section to an archive on their main website. That was it.
Less than 3 years. For 99% of hardware, that's the end of the story. It just becomes a footnote. But the PC began its second life almost immediately.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer openness of the platform was its immortality clause. That ease of programming meant the community just took over the entire operation. Developers saw the limitations, that 128 by 88 screen, those 4 shades of gray, not as constraints, but as fun, creative challenges.
The sources call it a digital canvas for enthusiasts, which is a perfect metaphor. The hardware tells you exactly what kind of art to make. Pixelated, high contrast, text-heavy art. It forces restraint.
And that restraint resulted in incredible longevity. I mean, despite being officially dead since 2004, new commercial games continue to be released for it as recently as 2021.
20 years after its launch.
20 years. That level of community persistence is just astounding for a proprietary platform.
It speaks to the power of giving developers tools and trust. And because the device is now an extremely rare collector's item, it mostly lives on digitally.
Absolutely. There's a fully functional emulator called PMU that lets anyone run the entire library on modern computers, so the games survive even if the hardware is hard to find.
And it stays relevant not just as history, but as an idea.
Yes. Just a few years ago, when the Playdate console was released, that new device with a black and white screen and a focus on indie dev,
Red Black Crank.
enthusiasts immediately drew comparisons to the PC. The PC became the historical precedent for this kind of low-spec, high-creativity hardware that empowers the creator over just maximizing graphical fidelity.
So what does this all mean? The Aquaplus PC stands as this potent, almost poetic example of a failed commercial product that became a successful technological idea. It proved that if you give people simple, free tools and trust them, they will create and sustain a platform far longer than your corporate balance sheet ever would.
It certainly challenges the assumption that technical power dictates success. It's a technological footnote that punched way above its weight. And it leaves you with a question. Given that the most restrictive technology, a 128 by 88 monochrome screen on a single AA battery inspired 2 decades of development, does true innovation sometimes thrive best, not despite limitations, but because of them?
Something for you to chew on. Perhaps having that clear, small box to work within unleashes a higher quality of focused creativity than having, a blank check.